a show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on JTV. This is the big story. I'm Kathy Richards. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition. We're here with yet another candidate for the upcoming general election of the Virgin Islands. That's happening on the 20th of April and 24th of April. With me today is Ms. Rosita Scatliff Thompson.
Yes.
Got it correct there. How are you? One of the new faces around.
Well, yes, in the political realm, definitely I'm new. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Well, being new on the campaign trail in the political arena, we need to know a little bit of who you are. So tell us, who is this lady that has put herself up to run for office in this Virgin Islands?
Well, first of all, I've had a very strong conviction. That's why I decided to run. But going back, who am I? I am a mom. I am a sister, a cousin, an aunt, a wife, a friend to most. Before that, as a child, I attended the St. George's School here, and then I relocated to Antigua, where I went to Grace Christian Academy, then on to Princess Margaret, and I spent about a year there, and then I returned home. While in Antigua, I was involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations. I was a Girl Guide. On my return back home, I wanted to pursue that same community effort type of thing, so I joined the Lions Club. I became a Leo. I was pushed up to the president. I spent a few years in the Leo Club, and of course, you know that organization does a lot for society, just like others here. I then went on to become a Lion. That was the forging of the Female Lions Club, the Ladies Club, and the men. We became one year. And of course, the older folks then had a really good sense of humor. They were like, "You're young, we're going to put you in a position." So I was a first-year director, two-year director, and then I went up to vice president. And then I left because at that point I considered myself, just about an adult, and I have always been into giving back to the community. So I decided it was time for me to return to Antigua and give a contribution there. So then I went back to Antigua and I taught there for 2 years and joined the Lions Club and did things in them as well. On my return home, I've left here twice in my lifetime, as a child, and then I left here just before the 2000s, and that's when I returned to Antigua. As an adult, when I returned to the Virgin Islands, I went into teaching. So I've taught many, many children who are now young parents, young adults here in the Virgin Islands. And like I said, while here, I got to interact with a lot of persons that I went to school with. I met a couple of new faces, and I continued to build the relationships that I had before. I'm always interacting with society. I'm a social butterfly, so I tend to like to go out. If you see me dancing at any event, that is me. Once I hear music, I'm going to dance. In my latest return, it was round about the 2018 after Irma, and it wasn't particularly a good year for persons who think that moving back home wasn't a good thing to do. But believe it or not, the moment Irma Maria happened, I wanted to come back home. And I was on the phone to my dad, I'm coming to help. And he was like, no, there's nothing here. You can't help. You have a young child. Stay. Well, the very first opportunity that I had was Easter 2018, and I returned home for vacation. When I got here and I realized the devastation, I felt a bit cheated. Cheated in the fact that I was not here to help with the cleanup. I was not here to give people that I cared about some sort of support, some sort of hope. And I decided I'm going to forego my return flight back to England, that it was time for us to stay. It was time for me to help develop my country. So what turned into what was supposed to be a 2-3 week vacation turned out to be me relocating home. Now, a lot of persons don't do that because I'll tell you, as Virgin Islander, I know that we're not necessarily easy to deal with. And yes, I was not treated quite nicely, just like I'm sure most persons haven't been why they decided not to return home. But I firmly believe that sometimes you have to break barriers, you have to break those glass ceilings. And I stayed and I went through my licks and I gave as much as I possibly could. Because who would I be if I didn't give back licks as a Virgin Islander? I started my business, cryptocurrency, Skyroma Consultants, where I dealt with cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. What I did was educate persons who wanted to learn about crypto, if they were willing to learn, and about blockchain technology. In 2019, we had our first digital economy symposium that was put on through the Premier's office, Emirates by the Sea. As I was in digitized field, they asked me to be the keynote speaker there. So I was a keynote speaker at that symposium. It was really good, but I've been quite sad that that initiative hadn't been developed further. I'm not quite sure what the constraints were to develop further because there was some big visions to happen for the young people, and I was really excited. When it comes to young people, I'm always very excited because I push them a lot, as much as I possibly can. And they were supposed to start something for the young entrepreneurs. So there was a workshop that I went to, and there was so much talent in that room of young people who are in the line of business. And I was really, really hoping that they could have had a place that they could build and further grow and just basically find out what it takes to have a business, because there are a lot of us basically we have to find our way through every day when it comes to business. There's no one place that you can necessarily go to say, okay, this is where I learned to do this, do that, trade license, and the next step is bank account, and the next step is this. There's an initiative right now with BVICCHA. They have separated, so there is a Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also a member of that, and I was asked to be part of the restructuring task force. Now, when I was approached for that, one of the things I said, listen, there's a lot of young people here, right? And since there's going to be a separation between the hotel and commerce, business commerce, we need to do something for them. And once I come on board, that's going to be my focus. We have to do more for them. So luckily the vision was shared, and we started putting things in place to do more for the young people, which is a really good thing. Who am I? As I said before, I love being involved in civic organizations. I've joined the BVI Diabetes Association, like I said, BVICCHA. I've been involved with the BVI Finance. There was a DAW group that they established and they asked me to sit on, which is a digital asset working group. What else have I done? I've done so many things. It seems to be
quite a lot that you have been
yes.
in depth in the society. But I want to pick on a few things that you would have alluded to while giving that background to yourself, and that is of you as a teacher.
Yeah.
When you haven't been a teacher, you would have thought in Antigua it was, as well as here as well. Mm-hmm. Looking at the education system as it is right now, what is your greatest concern?
Now, you're asking me to speculate a bit because I'm no longer in the teaching field and I don't have like a contact in the Ministry of Education that I communicate with a lot.
Yeah, but well, generally,
from the outside looking in,
yeah.
Yes, from the outside looking in, I'm hoping that they're doing as much as possible to try and reinvigorate our education system and offer our children a lot. I know that the old way with the talk and chalk worked back then, but it's not where we are right now. I also know, based on my field and what I deal with digitalization, that we need to have more fees like that offered to our students, and we need to have people on a whole understand where we are right now in this modern society and everything is digitized. I would love to see the STEAM aspect, like science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, push more for our students, but I would also like those students to be inspired to understand why it's important and why perhaps they're being led to go to those fields. Everything is through AI right now. It's digitalized, and there are two things I see personally. If there's not AI, you're going to need to have skill sets. Trade is important. Now, I'm not saying that I don't believe in academia. There was a time when academia was the thing in the traditional aspect, meaning that you only revered if you were someone that held a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. That worked then. This is not where we are right now. We want engineers to build the AI. We want engineers to program the phones. We want engineers who can put, this chemical equation together and this chemical equation together, perhaps make perfume. Those are the type of things that we need right now. And I think that I haven't seen as yet something in our educational system that basically enables our children and our society to be competitive with the rest of the world. So I'm hoping that there could be a resuscitation and there could be more state-of-the-art things established in our school. There's no reason why in this time every child doesn't own a computer or every child doesn't have a device in our school system. There's no reason why in this time we don't implement the ways of technology as part of our everyday process in our school system. Yeah, we have to learn to read, but there are AI technology right now that you don't even have to learn to read. They'll read it for you, and for those who can't listen because perhaps there may be an impairment, there's technology right now where they're working on those listening and hearing devices. So everything is about technology. You can't do anything right now without technology. So I would like if perhaps trade, where skills are pushed for our young people, where we look as a community and a whole and find things that we see there's a gap and we can fill. For example, we're in the tropics. There's lots and lots of hurricane yearly. I mean, if we ever not have a hurricane a year, it'll be a total surprise. In a hurricane, one of the things that always happens is that our homes get damaged, don't they? Mm-hmm. We lose roofs, we lose windows, we lose doors. Why is it that there is no one here that has established a trade school to help our youths learn to make doors and windows? So instead of us having to basically import these things that we need all the time in the use of hurricane, that they're actually being made here. I mean, you can't get more made in the BVI than that. Now, when you have students building things and they can see their own work, that starts to embodies a sense of pride, and we want our people to be filled with pride because from that perhaps we can build hope that all is not lost. So my thing is, find out what the youth want, because we have a tendency of thinking as an adult, what I say goes. And from what I've discussed and what I've been hearing in communication with the youths, I mean, these are the normal boys and girls on the street that I've been speaking with, and they're like, Miss Catnip, nobody listens to us, they don't hear us, they don't care what we have to say. And I'm like, but I care, tell me, let's have a conversation. And those are things that have been coming out, they want people to hear them and ask them, what do you want? What do you want your future to look like? Not what, a generation of baby boomer wants their future to look like, but what do you as a generation Z or generation Y, what do you envision your future looking like? And then based on what they've expressed, build it. Just build it and they will come.
Yeah, with that conversation, I can safely see quite a number of young people surrounding you. From the moment you start talking AI and technology, I can see them coming around you. How are you strategizing to make sure that this, what one can do can move mountains, but what a whole group can do will change the world?
Yeah.
What are you doing in order to help effect that, to make sure that these youths are surrounded by people who are like you, AI savvy, technology savvy, and looking at the things that matters to them?
Well, you see, I firmly believe the first institute that we get a sense of belonging is the family. And it doesn't matter how old a person may be, your family is always your backbone. Some of us don't get along with our family members, but however, they're the first group that we belong to. I would like to be a person on the outside that expires outside of that circle. But I firmly believe that you go back to your home. I think the home unit needs to be strengthened and perhaps encouraged as much as possible. Now, there are a lot of homes that are broken for whatever reasons. That's the person's personal reasons. And sometimes things don't work out, and that's just the way it is. But if something doesn't work out with mommy and daddy, that doesn't mean mommy and daddy can't be parents together to train up that child. There was a time when they said that it took a village to raise a child. I still believe it takes a village, but the thing is, the village doesn't even exist any longer. So what's happening? Where is that village? I am hoping that people understand, the constituents understand, the people in the Virgin Islands understand that sometimes it is necessary for us to help without being paid. It's giving back your contribution. Now, in terms of the young people and what's my vision for them, like I said, my vision and what they really want may be two entirely different things. As I'm in the digital aspect and digital field, I do understand as well where a lot of the interests hide. A lot of these things that are out there digitally, I've realized in communication that persons use it as an escape from the real world. So that says to me that their level of coping doesn't necessarily exist. So if a person's coping skill is non-existent, we have a lot of work to do. In doing that work, we need to try and build a person's confidence and build a person's self-esteem, which means perhaps more youth groups need to be established, because outside of the family, then becomes the school and the social groups. Bring them back. Back in the day, we had the Girl Guides, the Brownies, and the Scouts. Have you seen that building? It's just like almost totally, that's on the hyperbole, dilapidated. There are no youth centers for these children. And youth center doesn't necessarily have to be just on the Girl Guide aspect, but just a place that they can go that is safe.
Yeah.
There are problems in the home, and the problems that we have at home usually stems from finances or the lack thereof. People are not getting paid enough to live. They're suffering, they're in poverty, they're sad, they're hit with a lot of mental health issues. And when I say mental health issue, I don't necessarily mean that you're basically, ticked out. A mental health issue is basically you're stressed, you're depressed, you don't know if you should go on another day, you don't know if you have a reason to go on another day. I see a lot of those mental health situations in our district. They're territory-wise, but because our town center is our town center, the city is our town, you see a lot of them there. There's a particular lady that I always speak with, and she said to me, I see your poster out the other day. And she said to me, you're the only one that's always nice to me. Because I give her money, and sometimes it's not only just money, it's always a long prelude. I always have a long conversation with her. And I would say, well, what about social development? Like, they don't want to help me because I'm not from here. And there are always three sides to the story, my side, your side, and the truth, So I would have to research and explore that statement further before I make any grand gestures or hold any judgment. But I'm like, well, where do you live? They're like, I sleep on the street. And how do you eat? I eat at the garbage bin. And I'm saying, all right, so this young lady says that she's not a Virgin Islander per se, but they're Virgin Islanders in this situation. How do we pass a blind eye? I mean, is it really that easy for us? Are we so detached with humanity and compassion that it doesn't bother us? And for those of us that does bother, how many of us are actually able to do something? Because ourselves, we are constrained by not having the amount of finances that we would like to. So I don't know if you realize what I'm trying to point out here is that there's like a pattern that unless there is a break in that pattern to let a person live the life that they want to live, these things never ever stop. Like I have this saying right now, minimum living should not mean minimum wage.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that's perhaps a topic that I perhaps shouldn't speak about, but it's something that exists. There's a lot of poverty here, and people can't make ends meet. People can't make ends meet. They live in paycheck to paycheck, and that puts you in a certain mental state because you will not perhaps necessarily do things and say things when you're under stress that you wouldn't if you don't have stress. You know, just how the mind works. A lot of persons are having difficulty eating, and there's another thing as well, Kathleen.
I'm not eating and eating.
Not eating and eating.
Yeah.
And then the things that they do eat are things that are very cheap, which are not quite healthy.
Yes.
So why is it that healthy food can't be inexpensive? You know, why is it that you're making the non-healthy food very cheaply, but it doesn't sustain a person and everything that they need to do? Business. Right. So when are we going to be compassionate?
Yeah.
When are we going to think about the people? And another thing, Kathy, what I want to say here before I forget is that when I speak of eating, you know, there's a whole cycle that we have to think about because a lot of persons been considering whether or not we should go independent. I personally feel that perhaps decolonization would be the thing, but before we get there needs to be a plan of action. We have to have a vision, we have to put plans together, and then we have to execute. To get to that point, I don't know how many people feel about this, but I think agriculture should be a matter of national security. We have to learn to feed ourselves. Right now in the world, there's a big money thing going on with China, the US, and persons are understanding the importance of collaboration and cooperation. It may be to the Virgin Islands and other islands like ourselves, demise. If at any point whatsoever the US decides things are really bad with us, we cannot export any food.
But we had a taste of that during the COVID pandemic, you remember?
And how did that work out for us?
Yeah, we were in a panic.
We were in a panic.
Yeah.
If we kept growing our own food, if we kept utilizing the process of subsistence farming, that's probably that old time word. Subsistence farming is basically having a little spot in your yard that you can grow. For those who don't have an apartment, yes. I mean, I'm always at Clarence Thomas, and I'm always at Fort Garden buying my little pots because I just never seem to have enough space. Or even if I have space, the soil hasn't been tended to very well for that to happen. So I start my plants in the flower pots, in those little bedding trays. But we need to learn how to feed ourselves. We need to start, and it should be encouraged. And I've done my research. A lot of farmers that I've spoken to, because Kathy, I've been going door to door. I mean, it's a constant thing for me, speaking to people to find out what their concerns are. The farmers are not getting water. Why is it?
It's been a cry for a long time.
Why is it in this day and time we still have persons that don't have access to government water? And here's another issue as well. Did you know we have a lot of natural wells here?
Oh, yes.
Why isn't it being preserved? You're going to tell me that at no point at all a person of a country should ever have access to free water? Now, mind you, some of these wells, or most of these wells, are on private property, but it's a renewable resource, isn't it? It's a well. Let's preserve them. Let's clean them. Let's get them fixed. So at any point there's a situation like Irma Maria, and things have to be imported in. For the interim, we can be self-sustaining with these foods. Now, hurricane and farmland, no, that's going to be like a catch-22. It's not going to work there. There's going to be some of them that are destroyed. But we can also look into ways of producing food on a large scale that's outside of the house. Maybe shipping containers and, hydroponics. Another thing I want to touch on is the fact that we could be more green. And yes, there's a few, I think Green VI does some part of it.
Yes.
But besides what they do, what about cardboard, aluminum, bottles? Why can't we create different avenues of recycle that fits what our society is producing, and then find a way? Perhaps we can make it into something. This may be a task for the government. We can make it into something that perhaps can get us money if we're exporting it. But then in the collection on the whole, if we have everyone trying to do their part and collecting these things and separating these things, and also in terms of those that are biodegradable, we can find ways to do those things. There's a guy who is using the old trees that have fallen over in the hurricane and reprocessing it, because it's natural. Everything returns to the earth, doesn't it? And reprocessing it and putting it back as a natural compost for soil. That's an amazing thing. We all can find ways, and we all know ways that can be developed and help us to self-sustain. But I think the problem might be finances, of course.
But at that juncture, I want to jump in here a little bit, because the clock is coming down on us, and I allowed you so that you can open up yourself. As we get long in the conversation, you now begin to open up, but we're down to the bottom. So I want to hear from you, why Rosita Scatliffe Thompson for government?
Why? Because I care. I have a vested interest in the Fourth. I grew up there, and actually I take it quite personally, what I've been seeing. I don't like what I've been seeing in the Fourth. Ministers before us, or those who are in this realm right now, were tasked with doing a job. It doesn't seem to me as though they were doing that maybe as much, or as fighting for the cause of the people as hard and as deeply as they should. I understand the role of a politician. As a matter of fact, I hate to be called a politician when I'm speaking to people on the street. I said to them, I'm not a politician at all. I said, I would like to be a representative of the people. The job of a representative is to hear what concerns the people in your district or in your territory, for those who are at large, to hear what the concerns are, to hear what the visions are, and you go into LegCo and you fight to realize that. That's my job.
The House of Assembly.
Yes, the House of Assembly, and you fight to let those concerns not only be heard, but your job is to make it actionable. It's like, these are the concerns, this is what we want, this is what we need to do it. Give us what we need so we can do the job that the people want to do or need to be done. I haven't been affiliated with a party, so I'm my own alliance, so to speak. There's no corruption behind of me, and for all the new candidates, we basically have a clean slate. I am honest. I speak from a place of compassion. I've always been helping. I've been around in many of the community civil organizations, so that's like it's ingrained in me, and you can trust me.
Okay.
You can trust I'm going to do the job.
You tell the people in 10-15 seconds why vote for you.
I will listen to you. I've listened to you so far, and there are a lot of concerns that I share with you. I have a vested interest into revitalizing the 4th District. There's going to be 800,000 plus people come to our shores, and they're tourists. Is this the place that you want them to see? This is where they're going to hit first. This is our door. This is our welcome spot. I know how you're living, you should not be living. How I'm living, we should not be living. And ask yourself, do you want to have same things that have been happening with the persons that you've entrusted before, who basically have not showed that they've cared? Or do you want to have someone new who has compassion and understands that this is not the way we're supposed to be living, and I'm hearing you what you want, I'm going to go there and I'm going to fight for you tooth and nail with every muscle that I have to deliver what it is that you want, so that our community can be better. I understand for our nation to be better, it can't start from the top and come down. You have to build the infrastructure. And right now, the 4th District, the town center, is the infrastructure of the Virgin Islands. I want to help you build it. Vote for me.
Awesome, Rosita Scatliffe Thompson. I want to wish you all the best on this journey. Wish whatever you wish yourself in this in this moment, and we look forward to see the outcome of April 24th,
Thank you.
2023, when voters would have gone to cast their
Come out and
ballots.
vote.
All right. I want to thank you so much for tuning in for this edition of The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.